This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to this very special edition of the Glazov Gang. Tonight, Kathy Griffin's ISIS romance. We have two superstars with us this evening. Gang-Guandolo, the president of UnderstandingTheThreat.com, and Chris Gaubatz, the vice president of UnderstandingTheThreat.com. What an honor and a privilege to have both of you on the program, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie.
Before we begin, John, we're very enchanted and intrigued by the background in watching you this evening. Where are you and what's going on with that cozy fire there?
Hey, man, we're just having a fireside chat, talking a little jihad.
Okay. Gentlemen, I didn't think it was a coincidence at all or anything too surprising as somebody that has studied the left my entire life, this romance we have between the left and Islamic supremacism. And no coincidence that a leftist would hold up ahead of Trump and be satirizing, or whatever you want to call it, what ISIS does to its victims. Something very creepy, something very dark here. John, what did you make of it?
Well, it's certainly, I think, from our perspective and from my perspective, shocking, but not shocking. The left has a long history. The political left, the hard left, Marxist, socialist, communism, has a long history of savage behavior, and they like to cover it in intellectual elitism. But in fact, as we teach, as Chris and I teach in brief, the hard left Marxists in the United States and in Europe are absolutely in bed with the jihadi movement at the ground level here, at the national level and at the international level. So no real surprise.
Chris?
Yeah, and along the same vein, we talk about when we train law enforcement on a concept called the red-green axis, the hard left Marxist socialist groups working with the jihadis. And what better image can you have to portray the red-green axis than Kathy Griffin holding up a severed head, or a mock severed head of President Trump? It just, that's what we're up against right now, is the hard left has no problem using the imagery and working with the jihadi groups.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there's a lot of themes interweaving here, because we know that the left engages in jihad denial, but yet somewhere deep down they support this Islamic jihadist agenda. They're always trying to minimize or deny Islam's connection to Islamic terrorism and to ISIS, and yet they're engaging in a lot of the same activities, whether it's satire or not. So, it's interesting that Kathy Griffin apologized, or I'll put that apology into quotation marks, but there was that instinct in her to even pull this joke off in the first place. So can we just comment a little bit more on even the impulse to even engage in this quote-unquote joke? John?
Well, I just want to make very clear, it's very interesting, the political left. So our experience, and my experience in about the last 10 to 12 years up on Capitol Hill, when right after I got recruited out of the FBI and was working with DOD and was briefing members of Congress for a number of years, it was interesting. We would go to different caucuses. We would put out invitations for VIP briefings hosted by retired heads of CIA, FBI, DIA, that kind of thing. And never, not once, did one Democrat ever come to one of those briefings. And they were invited. Now, I will tell you, in my opinion, the Republican leadership has been just as at fault as the Democrat leadership. But the Democrat Party in general has sided with the hard left Marxists and the socialists in this country at an ever increasing pace. And we've seen it to the point that they protect. I mean, you had Bernie Sanders running as an avowed socialist, Mrs. Clinton running on a platform that can easily be identified with socialism. This is what we've got. And what you see with, like, Mrs. Clinton, what you see with the Democrat Party, with jihadi congressmen, especially Keith Ellison, who is, according to FBI sources, very close friends with the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood in the United States and the leader of Hamas in the United States, Nihad Ablad. You've got this marriage there. And so none of what they're doing, they're able to excuse horrid behavior, including, I mean, you had Al Franken essentially coming to, this woman's defense, essentially. Just it's outrageous.
Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, and even from my own experience, and this was going on 10 years ago now with the Muslim Mafia Project, where I worked with Muslim Brotherhood leaders in D.C. And you want to talk about a cozy relationship with the left and with the mainstream media. It was on a daily basis that Ibrahim Hooper would be on the phone talking to mainstream media, essentially having the media work his agenda for him, which is the Muslim Brotherhood's agenda. You had Keith Ellison, who is very close to being the DNC chair. He would come in for weekly meetings at CARE's offices. So you've got just a few examples, but you've got the mainstream media, which might as well be synonymous with the Democrat Party at this point, and then working with the Muslim Brotherhood. You've got a member of Congress having regular meetings with the Muslim Brotherhood, and that's just one example. There were multiple meetings that CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood had with their allies on the left and the DNC, and we see that year in and year out ever since then, and it hasn't subsided at all. If anything, it's more intense now than it ever has been.
Thank you, Chris. Gentlemen, and upon reflection, just in terms of the left in general, this heart of darkness that they camouflage. And I think what happened here is behind closed doors, we know that most of these leftists, they support that humor, they support the instincts of what Kathy Griffin just did. But, the mask fell. And that's why they're upset. You let the mask fall. We need to keep the mask on. We're humanitarians and loving people, etc. Whereas they're just full of hatred. But I was reflecting, John and Chris, imagine we just got together and we start thinking, hey, let's make a comedy. Okay, hey, I got a great idea. I'm going to behead Obama and just hold his head with a sword. Like, I don't think, first of all, it would never cross my mind to do that. Secondly, even if one of us did go crazy temporarily, the other people would correct one of us immediately. That's a bad idea, right?
Exactly. She thought it was a good idea because those around her didn't see anything wrong with it.
Absolutely. And they think this is a good idea. Now she's apologizing. But there is this there's a very dark hatred in them. And the point I was trying to make is you would never see conservatives even thinking about doing something like this. And if they did, which they wouldn't, but it would be a much more of a major scandal and the media would be all over it. John?
Well, right. There's obviously a double standard, but I want to put a fine point on what you're saying. Number one, the hatred. They are filled with hatred. There is no doubt about it. They hate this country. They hate law enforcement. They hate the military. They hate the liberty that this country stands for, and the freedom and the fact that this country gives people the ability to succeed or fail. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. They would rather have, like socialist, communist, Marxist governments, they would rather have the people beholden to the government. And I just want to put a fine point on something that Chris said and tied into what I was saying earlier, which is this. The LGBT movement is not a movement of people who are homosexuals who are simply looking for equal rights. That is a movement funded by hard left, political left, anti-American people. And we see that it is directly tied into the Socialist Workers' Party, Communist Party USA, foreign organizations that are foreign funded, hostile to the United States, working directly at the ground level with the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas doing business at CARE. in places like Ferguson and Baltimore and New York and these places.
Thank you, John. And I mean, just the bizarre, surreal reality we're living in. We've got the terrorist attack in Orlando on people in a gay club, and because they're gay, and then the LGBT community comes out for a protest, and they're protesting Islamophobia instead of the scriptures or the text in Islamic theology that mandate hatred and violence towards members of the LGBT community. It's just crazy. Chris?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know any other way to put it. What we're seeing right now in America is just a complete assault on our liberties. And that's where you've got jihadi groups like the Islamic State, the Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda. Their goal is to destroy any nation that does not submit to Islamic law, Sharia. But particularly here in America, that's their goal: destroy our liberty, subjugate us under the Sharia. The hard left, same goal, different outcome. The goal is to destroy liberty and rebuild society in their own Marxist utopian revolution society. But either way, we're being assaulted on all fronts at this point. And it's just going to take Americans to really come together and think about who we are as Americans and why we're fighting, or we're just not going to defeat this.
Thank you, Chris. Now, John and Chris, before we leave, let's depart on this crucial theme, and I think it's very much the epicenter of what you guys are all about. We've got to understand the threat. Now, what a catastrophe, what a disaster, what a tragedy that America has engaged in so much military action, so much of our treasure, so many American lives are lost in military action. But because the threat is not strategically deciphered, all of that goes to waste, because we won in Afghanistan and Iraq militarily. But the argument could be made that there is a loss on many levels because the enemy is not seen clearly. What do you gentlemen think in terms of what military action is being taken and needs to be taken while we don't have a strategic, coherent view of who the enemy is? Should we not do anything militarily until we get down who we're fighting and why? John?
Well, of course, Jamie, you answered the question. There is no way you can wage a war without identifying the enemy and what the enemy is trying to do so you can defeat that enemy. I mean, it's truly that simple. Since 9/11, in the Bush administration for 8 years, in the Obama administration for 8 years, and now just several months into the Trump administration, we have not defined the threat in any national security document in any way, shape, or form. And because of that, there is no way you can then be victorious. And so we will lose this war if we do not get our act together, look at the enemy very clearly based on who they are and why they say they're fighting, and then analyze the enemy that way, which is the way our war fighting doctrine says we're supposed to wage war, and then go at them and defeat them, utterly defeat them, complete and utter victory, total surrender on their part. That should be the objective. But that is not the word victory. I did not hear the word victory, certainly in the last 10 to 14 years.
Yeah. And Chris, your thoughts?
Well, John's talking about the military front and how we defeat this. From a domestic standpoint, we have got to get our law enforcement trained to understand what they're up against, whether it's jihadi groups, whether it's the hard left Marxist groups. But I am still surprised and I shouldn't be, but I'm still surprised as I travel around the country and we ask law enforcement at the beginning of our training if they've read the Al-Qaeda training manual, if they've read any Islamic law. And the answer is almost universally no. And so here at home, law enforcement has got to understand what they're up against before they can even begin to dismantle the jihadi network here.
Thank you. We are out of time, gentlemen, but we have about a minute left, 30 seconds each, please. Can you tell our viewers why going to understandingthethreat.com is probably the most important thing they should be doing after watching this show? John?
Yes. Well, first of all, we're the only ones in the country, as Chris said, training law enforcement, giving them tools to proactively find jihadis and map out the network. We are teaching and training civilians to do their part in the community, because they've got to get their law enforcement and their pastors, especially sheriffs and pastors, to understand this threat, because we're going to win this war or lose it at a level.
Chris?
Yeah, we need you in this fight. America is under attack right now, and every single person that loves this country and loves this nation and what we're about, we need you in this. So please go to our website, sign up for our newsletter, and follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. But we need you in this.
Thank you. John and Chris, what an honor to have you on the Glazov Gang, and thank you for everything that you're doing for America.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen that are watching the Glazov Gang, go to understandingthethreat.com. That's what you got to be doing. And when you're taking a break from that, make sure you go to jamieglazov.com to support the Glazov Gang, and also make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel as well. We'll see you soon. Good night.